Yes.
All right, everybody. Yeah. All right, if we can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Okay, so I will call this meeting to order. And we will start with a motion to accept the regular meeting minutes.
Make a motion.
That's not Cindy or Rebecca. So moved. Okay. And are there any comments or questions?
I just need to make a correction.
Okay.
I neglected to add the motion to approve the abstract. Which I will add
With the correction.
with the correction.
Okay. That's fine. Any further comments or corrections? Mark and I?
No. Yep.
And Letty? So all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? All right, motion carries. At this time, we'd like to open it up for public comment. Anyone have a public comment? Would you like to? Sure. Okay, stand and be recognized, say your name and where you're from.
I'm Marie Fox, better known as Mitzi, and we have a house down Rough Grouse Lane. And we have been involved, or I have been involved in the community for about 30 years. And I am here about the bench project. I'm going to run through the background of it, just for people who aren't totally familiar with it. The Revitalization Committee, which started by the village and the town back in, well, I don't know, about 15 years ago, 15, 20 years ago. It started as a beautification committee to do things for the community to make it more attractive, to make it more appealing to visitors, to residences, and to definitely be a positive influence if they could. After a number of years, it was changed, the name changed to Revitalization Committee because we were applying for some grants, and revitalization sounded a little bit more serious than beautification, or certainly long distance importance. So one of the things that had come up was to bring enhancements to the community, to have it more visually appealing and also more appealing for use of people, visitors, to improve the business climate, to at least to develop help the business climate to develop. And one of the ideas that came forth was to provide benches around the community so that people who were strolling and looking at the sites and visiting the stores and making themselves familiar had a place to rest, or for men to be able to sit while their wives did the shopping. So we, after extensive studying of other towns, benches were already in place. In Inlet was one place. Another place was Middleburg, New York, down south, slightly west. And after they settled on the type of bench that would be appropriate for here, and then shopped around to find a vendor who would make benches, provide them, and found Jerry from Jerry Woodworking would be very interested in doing that, and he provided it. So the program was settled on to make it a program that offered people as an opportunity to endow a bench. that was then part of the village and part of the town. And that the bench would then become owned by the village or the town. And the person endowing it could celebrate someone, memorialize someone, or even just make a statement. Now, there were a couple of benches, statements were joy is being in the Adirondacks, something for that. Thank you for the volunteers, or in memory of various,
We understand.
anyway, that's what we did. And they then would have plaques on them, so people would be able to do that. So after they settled on the current cedar bench at $500 an endowed bench. The benches cost $350 from Jerry, and the additional monies, $150, was to go into a fund to maintain the benches, to keep them certainly as we would want them to look for the people using them. And we now have accumulated 37 benches. There are 28 in the village, 7 in the town, and 1 in Arietta at the airport. They're not all out this year because of the COVID pandemic. They came out slowly and not all of them out. They are stored by the village and by the town in the wintertime. A trailer was purchased by the village, well, I don't know if it was purchased, but it was acquired by the village to store these benches here, and I'm not quite sure where the town stores them. The one at the airport is stored inside at the airport in the wintertime. So that is the story of the benches. We are now 11 years down the pike from when the benches first started. So some benches are 11 years old, other benches were endowed and put into service later, so they're younger. We, the village, has, the program has been every year, and just about this time, I would review the benches and make a list of any repairs that needed to be done. And then when Roger would pick them up, or Randy Lavarnway, in the village, in the town, they would put them in the front and take those benches up to Jerry's for whatever needed to be done for them in the spring. And when that was completed, they would go out as they always have. The placement of benches was determined by the endower and myself talking where a place was important to them. Someone had wanted a bench on the lawn of the Speculator department store because his wife always liked to shop at the Speculator department store. And so there ended the bench. So they've been placed all over the village with, in that manner, keeping everybody happy, so to speak. Now, my understanding is that our fund for the refurbishment of benches has been exhausted about a year ago, and the village actually paid for the repairs this previous year. So now we have a problem. There's no money to repair the benches. The village has the benches, owns the benches. People are quite attached to their benches, being that they endow them for some specific reason. What to do is the question. We need to have a plan to move forward by the village that is agreeable to all, to be able to maintain the benches as long as their useful life exists. It is difficult to anticipate anytime a small repair is needed, that because it can't be done, the bench is then, put into retirement. Doesn't seem fair. The village owns the benches. People and visitors enjoy the benches, look forward to having them in all over, down in the Point Park, down in the pavilion, along the road. I'm sorry, Mike, this is a new mask, and then neither are wearing it upside down.
Well, so long as you're 6 feet away and the people around you are okay, you can talk.
Okay.
But Mitzi, I just want to let you know that within public comment, you're limited to 10 minutes, so you're down to your last 2 minutes.
Okay, well, I pretty much said it. We gotta do something.
Okay?
It's up to you people. Let's get together and do it. There is, my understanding, there is possibly a gentleman who works for the, water treatment area that is interested in repairing benches, possibly. And Jerry, who is not interested anymore in repairing benches, is perfectly willing to, give some instruction and guidance to get this gentleman going. Whether this will work out, I don't know. Can you do it on paid time? I don't know. But I give you this problem. It is a problem of the village. I participate in the problem, but I don't repair benches.
Mitzi, do you have any idea approximately what the cost would be annually for carrying out this procedure?
I think it'd be very difficult to say, Letty, because we don't know what goes wrong with them. This year, one of the benches was wounded, and actually the donor was so excited about getting this bench back on site, offered to pay for the repairs. Great. But somebody has to administer this. I'm sort of done with the bench project and would like to move on to something else perhaps, but I am willing to do whatever needs to be done. I am emotionally attached to the benches, I agree, but we need to work something out. We don't know. There does come a time in a bench's life where it does get retired. We'll have to face that, obviously, but we have to also, I feel, deal with the repairs as they go on, because they are part of the community, part of the outreach to visitors, residents, shoppers, whomever. So anyway, I'm done.
Yes, I'm cutting you off by rules of procedure. Thank
I
you.
have said it all.
Thank you. And we do know that we have been in conversation, and you've been in conversation with Crystal. We have gone back and reviewed some of the notes in the board meeting and in the revitalization committee folder, and there is much lacking as far as the agreements and what was promised and said. And as you said, benches have a finite life built in pine, but we are evaluating
Cedar.
Cedar,
A little longer.
same genus or same family, but not species. There is a life expectancy, but we are going back and reviewing how much monies were collected. There are actually 41 benches that are out there that we have been looking after and maintaining. But if you have any notes from the revitalization committee, anyone that you know who is on the revitalization committee that can give us some information as to what those agreements were at the time, that would be most helpful for us to progress. So we will put this as an agenda item for next business meeting.
I have contacted people, and they have not come up with any further information than I was able to give to. Neil McGovern was chair of the committee and one of the organizers, and he would be a.
Yeah, I've reached out to Neil. Neil reached out to me this morning, and I've asked him for any additional information
He
that
would
he
be
might have.
a very significant person to be able to provide some information.
So this will be an agenda item for the next business meeting as to some possible resolution. So thank you for bringing that.
When will the next business meeting be, please?
It is October 13th. Thank you. You're welcome. Is there any other public comments?
I have one question. Is the town of Lake Pleasant also involved in these benches?
No.
No, they
Just
don't.
picking them up?
They have come
No,
from,
they
Randy
don't.
sometimes
They,
picks
they,
them up?
they don't even pick any up.
Okay.
We
so
pick
it's
them up.
all on the village.
Okay.
Okay, so public comment being closed, I would like to have the report from Mr. Blanchard, and that was provided a little earlier.
I've got a few extra if somebody needs one.
Roger, take it away.
Okay, last 30 days, we always are picking limbs and chipping limbs along the roads every time we get a chance. We paved our sidewalk, we mow and trim as needed. We've been doing a little bit of shoulder work, not an awful lot, until now that summer's over, we've been to start doing a little bit more of that. We did not haul any of our sand yet. We're gonna do that next month. We ran out of time. Garbage and recyclables, Ready and Black Bear for paving. We hauled in some item 4. We're constantly checking the dirt section at Elm Lake Road, and we fixed a few potholes, but we still have more to do. Next 30 days, we have to fix the driveways and the lawns along the new sidewalk. Mow and trim grass, which is slowing down quite a bit now. Roadside ditching anytime we get a chance. Shoulder work anytime we get a chance. Garbage and recyclables, of course. We're going to pave Black Bear Run, which is scheduled now for Thursday, but Randy tells me that they scheduled him for Thursday, but they haven't called me yet, so I'm not sure what's going on, but
Do they think they're gonna be able to do both at the same time?
well, he wanted to do the town and then come to us, but Randy said they moved him to Wednesday and Thursday, but he said he really didn't want to pay Thursday, so he's gonna talk to them. Hopefully they'll do us Thursday still.
Right.
And I'm gonna put some letters and stuff on the door so people know to have their car out if they need to get out, because they'd
Terrific.
be,
And I have
Stranded
had
for a
some
little while.
positive feedback on the sidewalk already, so.
we're gonna haul some winter sand once we get our paving done. Still working on Elm Lake Road dirt section, have to work on that quite often. We haul in a little bit more item 4 for winter and get our trucks ready for winter. And the next 60 days is roadside ditching, of course. Playground work, which is skating rink. I don't know why I put playground, but that's what I meant. Shoulder work when we can, Elm Lake Road.
Are you doing Black Bear as well? Black Bear Run?
Yes, I'm doing that next month.
I'm sorry.
This is 60 days.
Okay. got it.
Which we will be doing the shoulders on that, so we'll be working on that, but we might be able to get that in this month coming too, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Okay, then we'll dress our trucks for winter. We have garbage and recyclables still. Pick up benches, trash cans, etc. Clean our ditches anytime we get a chance, and hanging brush and down brush anytime we get a chance, or when we have to. And our chips is pave Black Bear Run, haul for item 4, order some stock culverts, look in the specs for new pickup, which I have here, dump truck, which finally came in July, and pave sidewalk, which we've got done. And at our superintendent's meeting Thursday, they tell me that we're only gonna get 80% of chips this year. We were supposed to get a 60,115.90, which will be cut down by 20%, which is 12 something.
And that's been confirmed, because we were at Nikon Fall training, and they said that there was a potential, and that they were more likely and were cutting chips when people had gotten to their maximum level of chips. So
Well,
that there was a chance at,
what they said at the meeting, that if people put their stuff in early, it didn't get cut down, but they still, when everything's said and done, might have to pay that back. They're not sure yet. That's what Tracy was saying.
okay.
It doesn't really affect us too much because we have quite a bit of rollover.
Okay,
So, I mean, we're still sitting really good.
so we just need to get that.
But then there was a rumor, which I can't substantiate. I have to call Dave Clemens tomorrow that they're not gonna let us roll anymore, but I'm not sure yet.
Ah.
I have to call him tomorrow and find out if that's
Yeah, please. so that
because we
can
would
make
lose
sure
money
get
if
it
we
done.
can't roll.
Okay, so we can't roll over. We may not be able to roll over the money.
And I don't know, that might be just the money they gave us this year we can't roll over. I'm not sure. And the person that said it said he didn't know for sure if it was even, so I hate to really bring it up because I don't know for sure.
Okay.
But,
So if you can chase that down, that'd be great.
and then I've got my
Yeah, so Crystal, we were going to share. the
truck list
Excel
and road
spreadsheet.
list.
Can I share? Okay. Look at you. All right. So for those of you online, you can see the Excel spreadsheet. For those of you, for board members, there is an Excel spreadsheet provided for fleet and equipment information. So you want to go through the three that are highlighted?
Well, the one that's highlighted under number 1 is one of the trucks we're replacing with this truck that we're going to order that I have the specs for.
Okay.
Number 2, which is the Iraq truck, it's got 115,000 miles on it, more now, is getting in fairly rough shape. I mean, it's still
And that's the truck you use for recycling,
recycling. Well, we use it for a lot more, but the recycling is the main.
is the main thing.
Right.
Okay.
And then, of course, our John Deere backhoe, which is a 2005, so it's getting quite old. It still runs really good. We've put a pretty substantial amount of money into it because the rear end went in it once. But right now it's running really good, but it's just one of those things that,
So how much money in repairs have you put towards the backhoe?
well, it's not all really repairs. It's also, I've got all of our maintenance and everything.
Okay.
It's a, give or take, there might be something missing, but give or take about $22,500 since 2005. Because the rear end was $10,000 when we had to have it towed, which I didn't even add the tow bill in there. We had to have, I think the county took it down for us, so we probably didn't even get charged for it, but
And how many hours is on it?
6,682.
And so, 6,682. So for those of you who don't know the life expectancy of a backhoe, I did look it up, and it's, you want to take a guess, Letty? Okay, 9,180 hours is the expected life, so it's about 2/3 into.
Considering what percentage of use.
It just says hours.
Hours.
So,
Yeah.
and that's for moderate use, so that's not beating us, beating it up.
It's not out every day use.
Correct. So I think with the mild to moderate use that we have, it should, in theory, it should last about, another 3,000 hours.
But that's not to change this up, not to get you off track, but that's our only tractor, so we use that pretty much every day.
Oh, you do use it every day?
And my only concern is, I mean, right now it's running fantastic. It probably will last another 2 years, who knows?
Right.
My concern is if it does break, we have nothing. The last time when the rear end went, and we had to borrow the towns for a while, so.
Okay,
And they had to use their front end loader, not their backhoe, unless they had a dig, then they'd switch with us.
right.
But that's my main concern is it's our only tractor.
Okay. So
But
you're-
if something happens, we do have reserves, with shared services, so.
So you're looking to replace that probably in 2 to 3 years?
I would like to, yes.
Okay. And then the Chevy that's used with the top rack for recycling, Mark, you said you sent me information as far as a possible DEC grant.
Yes, I did, and Roger, he has to make some phone calls and to see, it looks like they haven't accepted any applications this year, but the application is August, September, and October. So I need Roger just to discuss with them, are there going to be applications accepted this year? And so there is some money there that could be used to purchase the truck.
So I thought it looked like, oh, no, it didn't give a cutoff. Yeah, so if you can find out where the cutoff is, Roger, we do have some connections with, Lake Champlain, Lake George Regional Planning that can help us write the grants, but we just need to get all the information surrounding the grants. If you can get that.
Yeah, the big thing is if they're going to accept grants this year, and again, most of them, the forms you can fill out online.
Yep.
I could help Roger with that. So it's really, our vehicle's going to be under the grant, and are they going to accept applications this year?
Yep. Okay. All right, so
And,
we'll look forward to hearing that.
The phone number I get from you tomorrow, or do you want to do that now?
I sent you an email, Roger, and it
Okay.
contains everything that you need to know.
Okay, good.
Okay, and if you go to the second page of the Excel spreadsheet, I think that gives us the schedule for roads.
Correct.
Is that up to date now?
Yes.
So Black Bear Run,
We'll hopefully be done this week or next week.
okay. And then next year it'll be Brooks Avenue.
I was gonna do 2 this year, but with all the stuff going on with the COVID and then no summer help and all that, we couldn't get 2 roads ready.
Well,
So-
limited summer help.
Right. Yeah, limited summer help, right. And so I was gonna do Brooks Avenue too, but we'll do that next year. And I want to do some of Elm Lake Road, and maybe, depending on how much CHIPS money we have, some of Oak Mountain Drive.
Okay. All right, and are we looking into any culverts on Elm Lake Road, the ones that seem to have gotten a little squirrely?
We're really good right now, other than the dirt section. There's still a few that we have to, I mean, they didn't wash out, but we would like to, repair them, put a better culvert in, bigger size maybe. And
We're going to put together a list of culverts for CHIPS, and we'll do that over the next couple of weeks, and Roger will report on in his next meeting.
Great, and the other question that I would ask as we look towards efficiency, are there any vehicles, going back to the vehicles and the equipment, is there anything that we can decommission and not require replacement? So as we look towards creating efficiencies, as we look to increasing costs.
we are getting rid of, we're replacing 2 with 1, so we are decommissioning 1. I don't know which one, whether it's the water department one or the ours, I don't know which one, but we are getting rid of 2 to get.
So one of these will be a shared vehicle,
Yeah.
the first one, the Chevrolet 2500, that would be a shared vehicle, correct?
The one that we're doing this year, yes.
All right, and then at the next board meeting, we'll go through the vehicles and the equipment that we have at wastewater treatment plant, so we can have a better idea of how we can consolidate and run things more efficiently. Okay, Roger, I just wanted to bring up now, since you're here, the Adirondack Salt Initiative. So there is, in your packets that I've given you, every year we get a request to sign an Adirondack Road Salt Reduction Task Force. And while it sounds good all the time to reduce the amount of salt and commit to that, a lot of our roads within the village are state or county owned, so we don't have control over that, and we do use minimal amount of salt. So I did want you to address that.
Yeah, we limit our salt use as much as possible and use it on a freezing rainstorm, or if the roads are really slippery. Because sometimes you get that snow that's right at a certain temperature, when you hit it, it turns pretty much to ice. So we limit our salt use. We don't use a lot, nothing like what the town and the county does. So I feel we already limit it. If we sign that, that's restricting us to a certain extent. And I think we're better off to not sign that.
Yeah.
I know the town and county sort of
They don't
stays away
sign
from
it
it
either,
too.
yeah. And I think part of with the state and particularly with the state, is that they're not trimming the roads, so the roads are covered in shadows. So it makes it doesn't allow the sunshine to melt the snow and the ice that's already on the road.
And all the other superintendents I talked to, they feel if they sign it, it's tying their hands if they do have to use more salt for a certain reason. So they all try to use as little as they can, as possible, but they don't want to tie their hands to where they can't do it, so.
Right. So does any of the board have any questions about that or thoughts about that, or are you okay with us not signing?
I'm okay with that.
Cindy, Letty? Yeah. Mark?
Yes.
Good, all right, so we'll put that aside. Thank you, Roger, appreciate that. All right, so moving on, we are going to go a little out of order and have the clerk report. Oh, so we will excuse Letty. And Letty, before you go, Letty turned in her letter of resignation this morning that will be effective October 1st. And we want to thank you for everything that you've done for the village, for serving on this board, and we wish you every success in Walston Spa.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Letty.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thanks. So Crystal?
Could you just take down the screen?
Oh, sorry. Yes, I can. There you go. All right.
Right, so just a few things, hopefully that's it. The official results of the village general elections are as follows. There were 178 total voters this year. 12 were disqualified. So there were 166 total votes counted. Bobby Hoover received 54 votes. Karen McComb received 61 votes. Cindy Ramsey received 100 votes. Rebecca Smith received 86 votes. Proposition number 1 received 136 yes votes and 11 no votes. And proposition number 2 received 135 yes votes and 12 no votes, which means both propositions passed. Moving on, the fall training school took place last Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Although the sessions were offered were greatly reduced because of the online platform. I think they said about half of the sessions were actually able to be administered than usual when they're in person. It was still very informative and a great experience. They didn't just have webinars, they had this web app which you could actually download onto your phone or iPad as well, where you could network with others that were attending, as well as people from NICOM, OSC, and different vendors. They had the virtual vendor booths, so usually at a fall training school, they have in like the lobby area, they'll have a number of vendors set up where you can stop by at their booth and get different information. They had those all online, and you could actually set up video chats with those people. They had access to the agenda and the webinars through the web app as well. And you were able to put up questions or polls within the app that other people attending could then go and comment on, give you advice, or just generally chat with each other. The networking aspect is a big part of the fall training school, which was nice for them to put together something that also gave you the option, since we're all remote this year. Tracy, Jeanette, and I all attended the seminars for the 3 days. I did not keep track of what they attended, honestly. I know Tracy took some of the open meeting law ones and the minutes and procedures of like how to take minutes and how to do that effectively, which was beneficial since she'll probably be learning soon how to take minutes in case I'm not here. for some reason. I attended myself about 3 to 4 seminars each day. Some of the ones that I just wanted to touch on, I took mostly for kind of a refresher because I did take them last year as well. I took a monitoring your cash flow and managing your budget during time of fiscal stress. The second, which I took because we are in a time of fiscal stress right now, just to kind of refresh my memory a little bit. I've been working on, last year, Eric Craven put together a budget projection. I've been working on updating that kind of bi-monthly. I'll start doing that, and then I'll put together also a cash flow chart. And we had been talking about doing a multi-year financial plan for the last year but I'm gonna really start putting that together, hopefully this winter. And the OSC has a bunch of great
Planning tools.
Yeah, planning tools. Thank you for putting those things together. Second, the understanding FOIL was very interesting, and their new requirements for mostly for part of it, it was the new requirements for the police and paid fire, which really didn't pertain, but they did touch on the fact that the records retention schedule has been updated, and I wasn't able to attend that webinar. They had another webinar the next day on the new records retention schedule. It conflicted with the water sewer one that I took, but fortunately they'll have them all posted to their website in the next week or two, and I'll be able to look at it then. I want to take this webinar because they apparently the new records retention schedule consolidates several of the different retention schedules for local governments into one new schedule called the LGS1 schedule. And we will also be required to adopt this new retention schedule by January 1st of 2021. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So it just was finished. The updates were all finished and the consolidation in August. So, but they are requiring local governments to adopt the new retention schedule by the 1st of the year. Lastly, the administration of public water and sewer systems was a really interesting webinar. And the biggest part was that during our current state of emergency for COVID, there was a legislative action taken to, well, it was against termination of services for any local government utility during the state of emergency. But it also states that you have to offer a deferred payment plan to those who are claiming a change in financial circumstances
Due to COVID.
due to COVID, or well, due to the state of emergency. They did suggest in the webinar that the board create some sort of guidelines in order to approve the deferred payment plan, or somebody submitting a claim of change in financial circumstances to apply for this deferred payment plan. There were some people that were within the meeting that said that they would be willing to share what they have put together with others, which is great. So we would hopefully have some sort of guideline, or not even guideline, just idea of what we could put together as far as guidelines for accepting, because there are those people who are chronically late, or don't pay at all, and they said you could get into that sticky situation where they're going to come into this deferred payment plan and then just not pay their bill, because one, we don't know when the state of emergency is going to be lifted, and then two, The deferred payment plan has to be offered up until 180 days after the state of emergency is lifted. So that's 6 months if anybody didn't do the math.
So I would like to recommend if you would be able to gather the proposals from other villages, to ask the sewer and water committee to work with you on that. And I know we haven't appointed them yet, but I suggested that you, Cindy, and Mark Doniker. So it should be relatively straightforward. I think a good thing that Crystal brought up is that we've never had a non-payment of water and sewer. So I think the likelihood of it happening, I think, is extremely low. And I think the fact that we have examples should be pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you get me the information, Crystal, I'll be happy to work on it.
Okay. Wonderful, thank you. Some of the other seminars I took were, I took one on social media, protesting and the First Amendment, with very extensive talk about signs and the First Amendment. And I went to the financial officers meeting, which discussed a lot, again, about the water sewer payments and the deferred payment plan. Lastly, last week we received information from the Hamilton County Public Health on trick-or-treating for Halloween. I've had, people as well as the library had asked me if we were, or if the board had approved and set hours for trick-or-treating yet this year, and we had not. I think we were waiting on finding out from public health if that was an option or not. Now that it is an option, Halloween does fall on a Saturday this year. The normal hours for trick-or-treating, at least in the past few years, was 4 to 7 p.m. So if the board didn't have any objections to trick-or-treating in Speculator, then it would be Saturday, October 31st, 4 to 7 p.m.
So I'd like a motion to designate Halloween trick-or-treating on Halloween from 4 to 7 p.m. So would someone make that motion?
Yeah, Mark will.
Mark, and a second?
Can we do this now?
Yes, you may do this now.
All for it.
Cindy to second. Any discussion? There are handouts available from the Department of Public Health with those recommendations.
We'll also put those on our website as well, the flyer that they provided.
Right, so all in favor of Halloween trick-or-treating being on Halloween, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say no. Cindy? Rebecca, did you have something to say? You have a comment? The look on your face.
I know, I'm just kind of still trying to figure out, they've decided that people can go house to house and pick
And they have
out of
Well, they have,
holes or.
they have guidelines.
Yeah.
So they have guidelines as far as masks, as far as how many people should be coming, hand sanitizers being available, traveling in family groups. Yeah, so there's restrictions around that. So of course, if you feel comfortable, then that's fine. If you don't feel comfortable, their tongs are available, someone putting it in a bag, right? So not necessarily trick or treat as usual. And they are also saying to wear a face mask under any masks that the kids might have. So there are restrictions. So with that caveat.
Okay.
Okay, so all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. Okay, so motion carries with Halloween. So at this point, the board has had the opportunity to review the financial report and sign off on that. So I'd like a motion to approve the financial report number 3.
Mark.
Mark, second.
I'll second it.
Rebecca, any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? All right, motion carries to approve the financial report. And now I'm looking for a motion to approve abstract number 8 that has been reviewed and signed by the board.
Mark.
Mark makes a motion to approve abstract number 8, second.
Okay.
Cindy, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the abstract, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? No. Okay, so, Crystal, you may pay the bills. So now we move into the organizational portion of our meeting. As you know, it usually happens the first week in April following the election. Since it has been delayed for 6 months, it is today. So I would like to welcome Cindy Muncie and Rebecca Smith as our new trustees. Thank you for serving, and very happy to have you here. Both of you have sworn your oath of office with Crystal prior to this meeting. So you are welcome to participate. All right, so we are accepting, letters of resignation has been provided by Letty Roots. Her term ends April 2020. So may I have a motion to accept the letter of Letty Roots' resignation because she is moving to Boston Spa by the end of the month?
So moved.
Okay, second, Cindy, any discussion?
Does that mean that
There's a vacancy. Right. So all in favor of accepting the letter of resignation, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Letty may retire. I also received a letter from Dave McComb. His term has ended as zoning officer and he does not wish to continue in that capacity. So at this point, we'll move on to appointments made by the mayor. So the first appointment I would like to make is to have Mark Doniker continue to serve as the deputy mayor. Mark, are you willing to do that?
Yeah, I guess so.
Please?
You have no choice. Yes, please. My second appointment would be to fill the trustee position vacated by Letty Roots, and I am appointing Mark Prairie to for continuity to continue in that capacity until that term ends with the next election in April, and he has agreed to do that. And so, Crystal, if you would contact Mark to come in and sign the oath of office. So there are a number of appointments that are made with approval of the board. So as we go through, the clerk treasurer is appointed in sync with the mayor. So for our purposes, Crystal does not have to be reappointed, but for the New York State retirement, she does need to be appointed. So that's the first appointment, along with the Deputy Clerk Treasurer, Tracy Marshall. So all in favor of, I guess.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
All in favor of continuing that appointment? Yes. The same is true for Roger. For New York State, he needs to be appointed. So all in favor of Roger continuing as the Superintendent of Public Works, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Roger stays. The Fire and Building Code Enforcement Officer has agreed to be reappointed. That would be Bob Bankovich. I'm going to do a few of them that we'll do. Is Bob Bankovich. Land Use Enforcement Officer Rick Rumsey has agreed to fill that position starting October 1st. There is a position open on the planning board. Charlie Asher has agreed to fill that. There is Zoning Board of Appeals. There's an opening. I've not yet identified someone to take that position, but by next meeting, we should have someone. Also in that is a Registrar of Vital Statistics that will end in 2024 as Crystal was taking over from Bonnie Page on her retirement, and the Deputy Director, our Deputy Registrar of Vital Statistics taking over from Letty Roots would be Tracy Marshall. So I did want to put up the appointments. So just so that people are aware, we had to go back and check a few of these.
I think the only one you had was Zoning Board of Appeals. You had Mark Prairie.
Right.
So that's a vacancy.
Yeah, so that's the only vacancy. So the way I can't even find that. Right, there it is. Okay. So just to show you, the way that it's set up in law is the number of people that you have on the planning board determines the number of years for the term. And then each year, one person comes off and another person will come on, or a person is reappointed. And the same with the zoning board. So it's a 3-year term because there are 3 people on the zoning board and each one comes off or comes back in. I would note that for Neil McGovern, under the Zoning Board of Appeals, there was an incorrect appointment period noted for him on April 9th, 2018. His term actually ends 2021 and not 2023 as had been stated in prior minutes. Okay. So all in favor of those, may I have a motion to accept the appointments?
Mark,
Mark, and second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Rebecca. Any discussion on the appointments? Hearing none, all in favor of accepting the appointments, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Okay, motion carries for those appointments. The committees that have been set up, there is sewer and waters. So I'm asking Mark Doniker and Cindy Rumsey to do that. Streets and highways, Mark Doniker and Rebecca, if you would kindly do that. Parks and playgrounds, Rebecca, if you would work with Mark Crary
Okay.
with that. And then finance and office, myself and Mark Crary. And then fire commissioner, Cindy, if you would undertake being the fire commissioner. He's touching base with the fire department and being the liaison between them and here. You do not have to respond to any fires or go up in any ladders. All right.
You'll go into more detail.
Yes, I will, absolutely. So next, I would like to go through designations. The way that we have done this in the past is there are a number of motions that need to be made for a whole variety of things. So I'll go through and highlight on the list what we are making the motions, and those are available on screen. So first, we're designating the official paper as the Hamilton County Express and any others as needed. We are setting a regular meeting time and place and night as the second and fourth Monday of each month. Unless they fall on a holiday, then it should be on the Tuesday. They will commence at 7 p.m. here at the Village Hall. Next, we'll adopt the rules of procedure for meetings. I would like to ask that we consider modifying 2 portions of the rules of procedure. So the first, let me see where, okay, so in the rules of procedure under order of business, I'd like to add, as we have been doing, an additional time for public comment to be added at the end. So there's a whole list. And then the other is guidelines for public comment. And I would like to reduce the time of public comment from 10 minutes per person to 5 minutes per person. So you can imagine, Mitzi, not that you went over, but you can imagine if there are a whole host of people who want to speak, we could be here for a long, long time. And usually 5 minutes is more than sufficient for a public comment. And of course, additional time may be requested, but just as a general rule. So I would like a motion as we get to the end to include those comments. And again, board members, if you have any comments as I'm going through these, any comments, please stop me and we'll fix those, okay? The next is to adopt a resolution to authorize payment prior to audit of claims for our utility, postage, and freight charges. So before it shows up on the abstract report, Crystal is able to pay it before we get that approval. Adopt a resolution where there's 2 signatures on checks, and that would be the clerk treasurer and the mayor or deputy mayor. And I called it Mary, so my sister would be happy. Okay, thank you. Okay, and our bank will be NBT, continue to do that. We will adopt the listing of water and sewer customers as the basis for computing fees. We'll adopt a resolution for attendance at schools and conferences. We have already done the NICOM February training. There are still one or two additional trainings for, and yes, we'll just keep this because it's gonna come up again in April. So, okay, then number 8, to adopt a resolution that provides for mileage reimbursement in lieu of auditing and allowing a claim for actual and necessary expenses for automobiles, and looking at that to be at a reimbursement at a fixed rate used by the federal rate. And then we would set the next organizational meeting for April 12th, 2021 at the Village Hall, foreseeing no more pandemics at 7 p.m. So I would like a motion to accept these resolutions as stated, including the correction for the order of rules of procedure. So may I have a motion?
So moved.
Rebecca, second. Cindy, all in favor, any discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Hearing none, that motion passes. Save and stop share. Okay, so next on the list is the procurement policy. So that is to be renewed and reviewed each year. It was updated last year. So my question now is, does anyone have any comments or corrections to be made to that policy? Or is it good to hold over for another year?
I think it's good to hold over for another year.
Yeah.
I agree with Mark.
All right. So a motion to accept the procurement policy without any changes.
Mark?
Okay, Mark, and second,
I'll second.
Rebecca. No discussion, so all in favor of accepting the procurement policy for another year, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed? All right, that passes. So now we move out of the organizational meeting. Congratulations for passing that hurdle. So now going on to the COVID-19 update. So as of today, there are 17 positive COVID cases in the county since the pandemic began in March. There are 2 patients currently under quarantine in Hamilton County, and no one is hospitalized at this time. There has been a decrease in the number of quarantine travelers. As you know, travelers have to register when they fly into the state. They are asked to do so when they drive into the state, although that is not as closely regulated for obvious reasons. So the number of travelers right now is reported to be 49. They are contacted each day for 14 days by a contact person. To date, there have been 2,116 tests performed for COVID. 2,099 of them have had a negative result. So we are keeping up with the amount of testing required for the county based on the size. The Department of Public Health is also implementing a rapid COVID-19 test, and a lot of that is being driven by schools. So far, they have conducted 7 tests, all of which have been negative. So these allow results in as few as an hour or as many as a 24-hour period.
Is there a special, in order to get the rapid test, is there protocol for that, or can anyone get it?
From what I understand, you can contact the Department of Public Health and they would advise you accordingly. Right. And also in the COVID-19 update, they have provided the plans for schools. So what they're doing in that regard, how they're handling children who may come down with COVID, and I'm sure that if anyone has additional questions, they can check with Bobby coming from the Board of Ed. Yeah. We'll give you a test later, by the way.
Okay.
So as far as the FEMA emergency Halloween storm update, there's nothing new to report. We are waiting for some information back from the engineers. I'm blanking. The Army Corps of Engineers. So that we can submit that to FEMA and keep progressing. The COVID update, there's nothing new to report. We are entering the data as we have it for those costs, and then they'll get back to us what's available. Small cells, there's nothing new to report. We're hoping by the end of October, we should be able to progress within the village down at the pavilion to add a small cell tower. And we should hear by the end of November for SFAC. They are also going to place a small cell tower, so that should improve reception in the village dramatically, in addition to the added 15 feet on the tower at Oak Mountain. So Crystal, just as an aside, have we received a check from Verizon yet? Excellent, so that's moving along. Fire tower, there was a kickoff meeting that is not associated with the village, with the fire tower committee. That is being headed by Ryan Marshall. We met with, I'm blanking, Rankin, what's her name, Nancy? Lori, thank you. Lori Rankin for New York State Fire Towers, Allison Gaddy from the Lake George, Lake Champlain Planning Board, Donna Benkovich from the Chamber, Christy Wilt from the IDA, Hamilton County IDA, and then we had a volunteer, Stephen Vandevort, who has volunteered to help us to develop a marketing plan, and Stephen.
Oh, Steve.
Yep, Stephen, his parents live in Lake Pleasant. He's been coming up here all of his life. Very excited to help us. I think he makes a great addition. So we hope to have a few things answered. We do need to raise a total of $50,000 for the program. That will include a kiosk, that will include different maps, any of the incidentals that go beyond the funds that we have been granted already. So I think we're off to a good start, and it's our hope that we'll be able to get the tower erected by June, perhaps in time for July 4th, which would be terrific. Anybody who wants to volunteer from the public or from the board as a private citizen, please contact Ryan Marshall. Okay, revised permit fees. Let me see if I've got that up. So Mark Doniker very kindly reviewed permit fees and has a proposal. Oops, has a proposal. Just trying to move it. So for those of you online, that's that. Okay. Mark, you want to?
Yeah, basically I met with Bob and Supervisor Bain on the present cost of permits for both Lake Pleasant and Speculator, and the proposed 2021 permit costs. They had covered the reasons why they wanted to upgrade those, the cost of the permits. Basically, we cover around 25% of our costs under the 2020 permits, and we'd go to almost 50% with the 2021 upgrades to those costs. Roughly, it costs us, Bob's yearly salary is $5,200. He had $912 in mileage reimbursement. His contractual code was 1,344. That include mileage and annual conference. So his annual budget is $6,800. So we want to attempt to at least bring it up to 50% and next year review it and hopefully get to 90 or 95%. So the ordinary taxpayer doesn't have to cover the costs of code enforcement. One of the things that I think we have to absorb this year is the software for code enforcement, and Crystal can give you a little update on what that's going to cost us.
Yeah, so not that I'm Crystal, sorry, Crystal.
Or the mayor.
So the one-time fee was approximately $2,650. $1,000 of that can be deferred to next year's budget. And then there's an annual fee of $553. So that's what it would cost us going forward. So the total cost for code enforcement, including the software right now, is about $6,600. So I believe, Mark, after some discussions we had today, that we would look to adding in some of the zoning permits, but that will be the topic for another
Yes.
meeting.
Yeah, once the new zoning code enforcement officer, I will meet with him and go over the list of things that we need to have permits for and the cost of each permit.
Right.
So the town would just like to be the same as the village, and they will vote at next meeting to adopt this cost, the increase. So I think we can vote on that tonight, or if you want me to put a resolution together, we can vote on that.
I think we can do a motion to approve that, Mark, and I think it was with the caveat that we would implement on January 1st, 2021. And
That's fine, yes.
And that would give enough time for people to be made aware of that and to make that public. So, Mark, would you like to make a motion to?
Can I ask a question?
That would be under the discussion portion, but yes.
Oh, I have to wait?
So-
Okay.
Yeah. So, Mark, if you'd like to make a motion to accept the proposed budget building permit fees?
Yes, make a motion.
Okay, second. Cindy, seconds. Discussion. Rebecca, you have a question?
I do have a question.
Yes.
Okay. So for this year, are we trying to cover 46% of the cost? And then we're aiming, then on this paper, it says 80% of the estimated cost, and eventually to get to 95%?
Yes,
I know you had prior discussion,
Yes,
like
sir.
why are we not going for 100%?
I don't know if that's possible. And again, it's based on the number of permits in a year. So not knowing what you're going to permit it's hard to tell what the actual cost is going to cover. In some years we may make a profit, and some years we could take a loss.
Okay, so some years the regular taxpayer kind of
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
for someone that wants to do an additional building project?
Well, the average taxpayer shouldn't have to supplement the cost of the permits. So the attempt is, sure, I'd like to cover 100%. I don't know if we'll ever be able to do that. And that's based on the number of permits. So next year, when we look at this again, we may add, one of the things towns and villages do is they add 1% to the total value of that cost. So if somebody built a $40,000 addition, 1% or $400 then would go into this. But I think this is a start to, have the average taxpayer not pay for this, just the permittees.
So there are some villages that review their permitting schedules every year. This permitting schedule has not been revisited since 2017. So the proposal is to increase it, the amount that Lake Pleasant and the village proposes, and then we'll revisit it next year. And then hopefully we can make that a routine to visit it each year to see if we're covering the costs or not. And then, in addition to that, add the zoning permits that are that should be included in here but are not listed out, because of course we pay the zoning officer as well, and there's no way to recoup his fees either, his or her fees. So we'd like to see how we can make that more efficient and take that burden off of the taxpayer.
Okay, thank you.
So all in favor of approving the adjusted building permit fees, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Hearing none, motion carries. Okay. Do you want to let Supervisor Bain know that we have approved those permit fees, Mark?
Yes, I'll give her a call tomorrow.
Terrific. Okay, next on the agenda is the appropriation of fund balances to reserves. So as we mentioned at the last meeting, the Office of the State Comptroller recommends 2 months of reserves on hand, operating expenses. Those come to, did you tell me 79, 85?
2 months.
2 months, each month.
It comes to about 2/3 of our unreserved fund balance for
Okay.
each account
Oh, so we average approximately 85,000 per month in operating expenses.
for the A fund.
For the A fund only, for the general fund.
Per month, that's per month.
Yes, per month.
For the F, which is the water account, and for G, which is the sewer account, they both do about 18,000. That's an average based on 2018, 19, and 19, 20 expenditures, so.
So at this time, we have $207,000 in unappropriated fund balance
For the A fund.
for the A fund only. And so that would give us 2.4 months of operating expenses. So we're right in that ballpark. For sewer and water, how do we stand?
Water, we've got about 49,000 in unreserved fund balance, and then in sewer, we've got about 235. But we do have more in sewer because we are planning to be paying back that sewer fund, the sewer project stuff.
Right.
In a couple of years. That'll start in 2 to 3 years, I think.
So the other question was how much was rolled over from the Speculator Fire Department?
So the Speculator Fire Department this year, or I should say last year, rolled over around 21,000 from their budget, their 2 budget lines. We did already reappropriate some of that, a total of 14,428 to help pay for the ladder truck. So they have about 7,000 left over. And DPW rolled over about 21,000.
Okay. So a few months ago, we made a motion to create 4 capital funds, one of which required a proposition. So there's a capital fund that was set up for the water, sewer, general fund, DPW, and Speculator Volunteer Fire Department. I know Mark and I discussed it this afternoon, just throwing around some numbers. We are not required at this time to put monies into those funds. It's whenever we deem it necessary or deem it appropriate. My feeling right now is that we should keep a little bit more money in the unreserved, unappropriated fund balance just to cover anything unexpected, because we don't know what additional requirements are coming, what additional PPEs will be required, if we have to pay for added leave and things like that. I think it would just be wise to keep a little bit more on hand. I don't have an issue with rolling over 5,000 into the fire department at this time. They've been pretty good with their budgets and getting grants and things like that. I'd be a little more hesitant to roll over more than $1,000 into the DPW fund and hold off on water and sewer, especially water.
So for those of you, I don't know if you two know much about reserve funds, but once you put money into a reserve fund, you can only take it out based on the what is stipulated for that reserve fund to be able to take that money out. So if we put money in there, then we might not be able to take it out.
It's locked up.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of.
And we can always go back and visit it. So, you know, at the end of the budget year, if we've done incredibly well and been able to save monies, we would be able to roll over, or, you know.
And the only reason we didn't want to do water and sewer this week too, like make any decisions, was at the next meeting, Ed Ed and I are working on gathering information on what kinds of losses the water and sewer might have because of COVID, as far as revenues go. So we're putting that together for the next meeting. So I think we should really look at that. And in discussion with Mark and Jeanette this afternoon, we should really look at those numbers first and see what possible losses we will continue to have in water and sewer before appropriating any money for the reserve funds, so.
So any thoughts about that? Any comments?
I think I agree with the concept and revisit it again in first week of January.
Okay, so are you suggesting that we leave things as is, or roll monies into fire department, or wait for everything until January and get a better picture of things?
I'd like to wait until January and get a better picture of what happens with the COVID.
Yeah, I agree with Mark.
Okay. Cindy, are you good with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so at this time, we will revisit that in January. Okay. The LoSAP, which is the Long-Time Service Award for our fire department, that was one of the propositions. So that was moving from a set amount that was going into the fund and was coming out. It required a lot more machinations by the management company to ensure the way that that was being funded. And so now we'll be able to save a few $1,000s by moving it into a system where it's more free-flowing with the economy. So I am waiting to hear back from the lawyer as to what those next steps are so that we can change that over. That usually starts with the beginning of January, so we'll be able to see some savings there. Last thing under old business are the LED streetlights with National Grid. So as you know, Karen had volunteered to do that. That was put on hold. Thank you, Trustee Smith, for coming forward to saying that you would work with Roger to complete that. Just by way of reminder, this review of the inventory will determine and confirm the number of lights we actually have, which ones need to be replaced because there's always a few that National Grid have not kept up with, and what the wattages are, with the higher wattages at intersections, at very popular areas, and then lower wattages for other lights in the neighborhoods. Okay, so going on to new business, based on the NICOM training session, they had an Albany update, and the Office of the State Comptroller sent a representative to discuss with us two things that affect us directly. One are to consider the three major sources of revenues for the village are sales and use taxes, property taxes, and state aid. So local sales taxes statewide have declined almost 11% year-to-date through August, with the sharpest declines being seen in New York City. It's estimated to represent about 6% of total revenues. This impacts the village because the state withholds approximately $59 million annually to fund unrestricted aid to certain towns and villages, which is known as AIM, AIM. This year, however, they're going to withhold another $50 million from counties outside of New York City to support financially distressed hospitals, nursing homes, as well as other distressed provider assistance. So that's really going to cut into AIM. We haven't received too much in AIM funding, but still to take an additional $50 million across the state is pretty big. The second is state aid will also be impacted. And so they have given the Director of Budget unprecedented power to reduce state spending, including aid to local governments. One of those is to reduce the assistance already provided by 20%. As I said, that's AIM, the aid and incentives for municipalities. The second one, which really hits close to home, is the CHIPS program. So as Roger said, he's heard from the superintendent, the county superintendent, that CHIPS is already being reduced by 20%. We've heard a variety of things. So as of last week, we were told no decision had been made formally, but it was likely that those reductions were coming, and that those municipalities that had already come to their level of CHIPS funding, they were already being cut 20%. So we just need to bear that in mind as we go forward. All right, so that was a happy update. All right, moving on. There's an opportunity for hazard mitigation funding. I sent you an email that I received from Don Purdy. So there are two opportunities that DISH's, the Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Services, gave us. One is a nationally competitive grant targeting building resilient infrastructure and communities, and a second statewide hazard mitigation plan that prioritizes funding for counties declared in the FEMA DI 4472 Halloween storm. So that's us. So I'm asking the board to consider sending 2 letters of intent on behalf of the village. This does not commit the village, this does not obligate the village, but it gets us on the agenda for being reviewed to file a fuller request. So the first one is to complete some water line loops for our water supply. So right now there's usually a series of feedback loops, or a series of loops that if you have to stop the water in one area, you can bypass that section by other loops within the system. So originally the water system for the town was working in that regard, ran out of money, and so there's one additional big loop section that is south of the Route 30, Route 8 bridge, south of the pavilion, that needs a few more loops put in there. So that's one suggestion for mitigation, because in a time of crisis, that would be pretty bad. A lot of the village would not have access to water. The second letter of intent would be for the water and wastewater generator. Our generator is quite old. It costs about $250,000 to replace, which is quite costly. Right now, they are using duct tape and ingenuity to keep it going. I mean, they've really done a remarkable job, but I think that would be another big item that we would see. And again, these mitigation plans will cover it 100%. It would not involve costs from the village, and I think it's always good to go after what we can for the sake of the village. Do you have any other thoughts? These letters of intent have to go in on Wednesday. Our engineer is working on those letters tonight as we speak. Is there anything else? Anybody?
Mayor, is the priority the loop and then the generator?
Yes.
Okay.
But we don't have to put in a priority at this point.
Yeah, I would think the generator should be a #1 priority.
Yeah, I was asking for both. Brendan seems to think that from a large impact, he thinks that the water loop would carry more weight, but both can be submitted, and then they determine their priority.
Okay.
So we don't have to do that. So
And is the beachfront, waterfront washout from the Halloween and everything, does that come under the whole FEMA thing?
well, that's still under FEMA. So we have been able to do virtual inspections of the wastewater treatment plant, pumping stations, the roads, the washout on Elm Lake Road, the culvert on Marion Avenue. We are not able to do a virtual tour, virtual inspection report, because we can't take a camera and say, see what we see, you know, can you determine how much is washed out? So we are actually having that on hold until their travel restrictions are lifted, so that they can actually come and evaluate and assess what can be done. So that's still part of the FEMA, FEMA plan. Right. So Do I have agreement? I don't think we need a motion, but do I have your agreement to go ahead and file those letters of intent for the water system and the generator?
Yes.
Yep, okay, great. All right, next up. Thank you to NICOM Training School. We have been informed that there is an operational plan for public health emergency involving a communicable disease law that has been put in place. So by April Fool's Day, 2021, we are required to have an operational plan in place. I do have a checklist available for those of you online. That makes it a little easy to follow. So the checklist, okay. So this plan has to include designation of who is an essential worker and why, remote work plan for non-essential workers, of which we've had none, policy of staggered work shifts, if that's possible, documentation of hours and work location of essentials, I think that's essential employees as well as, yeah, for essential employees. Protocols for emergency housing for essential employees, a policy on procurement of personal protective equipment. We have to have leave policy for workers who have been exposed to COVID on the job. We have to have a leave policy on health testing and quarantine for any future pandemic. Yes, not
Not just COVID.
not just COVID, but God forbid something else comes down the pike. So I am looking for a volunteer to help me work on this operational plan. We can divvy it up, but if someone can help do the general overview of it. Okay, so thank you, Cindy. I was hoping you would say yes, based on based on the great plan you have helped create for Camp of the Woods, and congratulations to Camp of the Woods for no COVID cases and handling that situation extremely well. So I'm sure we'll steal a lot of things from that plan.
And I'm glad somebody else said yes.
Yes. Yes.
I can retract that.
His place.
No. I was going to say something, but you jumped right in there, and that's fine.
So thank you. Okay, so the fourth and final new agenda is a resolution for training for zoning boards and our planning board and our zoning board of approval. So I will pop that up for the people viewing. Oops, people viewing, if I can move it. Come on. I'm assuming, there we go. Okay, so it came to my attention this week that there have been village, town, and general city laws on the books since January 1st, 2007 that require all New York planning boards and zoning board of appeals members to complete 4 hours of training each year. The training is flexible. It can be done online. The training is offered by a host of agencies, commissions, associations, New York State, and other organizations. So I've proposed a resolution that outlines the training requirements as well as the acceptable training for these board members. The training completed in excess of 4 hours for 1 year can actually be rolled over into the next year. And there's also flexibility of other training activities that we can approve as a board on a case-by-case basis at the request of either the zoning board of appeals or the planning board. So given that this is a new requirement for our dedicated board members on the planning board and ZBA, I'm also suggesting that the training be completed by the start of the fiscal year, which is June 1st. So those that are currently in place and those who would be newly appointed in April would have to complete that by June 1st, and then every year thereafter. So I provided you with the resolution citing the village laws, the town laws, and the general city laws. And then within the resolution, The training can come from the New York Department of State, Department of Agriculture and Markets, Office of the State Comptroller, Department of Health, Department of Transportation, Department of Environmental Conservation, Office of Parks and Recreation and Historic Preservation, Hudson Valley Greenway, New York State Association of Towns, a Conference of Mayors, Association of Counties. You get the idea. There's a huge number that people can do however they see fit, just to give them a better background in performing those responsibilities. So it can be done online via YouTube or whatever. The clerk would keep track of that training. So we can develop a simple form that would say, okay, this is what I did, this is when I did it, and I test that it's been done correctly. So may I have a motion to accept the resolution for training of board and ZBA members?
Mark,
Mark Prairie, second?
Second.
Oh, sorry.
Mark,
Mark Donaker, sorry. Rebecca Smith, seconds. Is there any discussion?
Would they give like a little summary to anybody after they did this?
Well, they wouldn't need to.
Mhm.
It obviously could be requested.
Mayor, what I did for Lake Pleasant Planning Board, I brought back all the material that was given out.
Okay,
And, you know, the registration that I actually attended and got the 4 hours.
so some sort of documentation that you had.
Yes.
That'd be fine. Cindy, did you have a?
So how do you go about finding where these things are? You just contact a,
New York State has a website that has connections
Okay.
to different training opportunities. It was surprising how much is actually out there. So it's pretty straightforward. Any other comments or questions? All right. All in favor of accepting this resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say no. Motion carries. And, okay, that's that. Moving right along, board roundtable. So at this point in our meeting, we go around the room, and if there are any items that need to be discussed or things that have come to your attention that you would like to raise, now would be the time to raise it. So I have 3 things for the roundtable. First is that there will be a public hearing with the planning board on October 6th. That's a Tuesday, right? Yes. Tuesday, October 6th at 7 p.m. regarding a subdivision on Elm Lake Road. The meeting will allow for in-person participation with masks and social distancing. Total capacity for this room is 12, and Zoom will be available to the public for anybody who wishes to hear or participate. Interested members of the public should contact Village Hall for the Zoom information, and it should be available the day of. Yep, okay. Second are electric vehicle charging stations. So in speaking with Supervisor Bain last week, she provided me with grant information on electric vehicle charging stations. The town council discussed it at their board meeting last week, and it was suggested that this would be better suited for the village since we have central locations such as the pavilion, etc. So I would like to point out that at present there are charging stations at Charlie John's for electrical vehicles as well as Teslas, because all electrical charging stations are not created equal. News to me. So at present, in speaking with, not Jonathan, Jonathan's wife, Lynn, yes, thank you. In speaking with Lynn, she said at present, it really appears that only the Tesla stations are being used with any frequency. The other ones, they really haven't determined that many people are using them. Yeah, I know, that's part of the other problem. They are along the side of the Lane Emporium on the Elm Lake Road side. So I think there are two or three stations with that. There is talk of other people exploring that opportunity for their businesses. that may not be as central as Charlie John's. I think some things that we need to explore are, what are the other commercial locations looking into? Are they looking into charging stations? So, could Tanner's, for example, or one of the local restaurants or recreational areas be looking into charging stations? So that's one thing. How much does it cost to maintain the stations? Because those would be our responsibility. And then the third question I have is, how would the village bill for those services? So I know in some parts you put in a credit card, it charges it, based on how much the consumption is. So this would be a service that we would not be able to give away, but we would have to recoup for the village. And then, what are actually the potential sites, because those sites need to be accessible all 4 seasons. So if you put it down at the pavilion and the ball field, we have snowmobilers in the winter, we have snowplows with the risk of being run over. And so there are a lot of things to consider. So is there anyone interested who would like to explore some of those things? I do have a contact with another larger city that's just implemented that. Anybody have an interest?
I just don't know why it would be the village responsibility or not business owners who could make money out of this.
Yeah, my inclination is to keep it with business owners.
Oh, yeah.
Those are smaller
we should.
properties, they have.
Well, especially right now, there's not that many of them up here.
Yeah.
And
At this point in time.
Yeah, I
So,
think
yeah,
Mountain Market, Charlie John's, is, would be the places. Just like you get gas at Mountain Market, you would
right.
charge up.
So what I would like to suggest then is to share this grant information with our local businesses, and perhaps provide it to the Chamber of Commerce that they can distribute it to the businesses.
Correct.
And it would be a grant that they would not have to pay for, so it would be free installation, but a lot of the other maintenance and charging and things like that they'd be able to do. Okay. And my last roundtable item is that during the same discussion with Supervisor Bain, she informed me that the County Board of Supervisors and the town of Lake Pleasant are exploring the potential for implementing a bed tax for Airbnbs. So there are a number of areas within the Adirondacks that are charging, such as Lake Placid, Old Forge Inlet, Warrensburg. So these taxes can be anywhere from 0.25% up to 1 to 2% on a given room rate. So I am looking for a volunteer to join me to explore this further with representatives from the town of Lake Pleasant, which would be Betsy Bain and whoever else volunteers for that. So is anyone willing to sit with me?
I'll be with you.
Rebecca? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Say that again,
Welcome,
Mark.
Mark.
Mark, thank you. Good. Is there anything else with roundtable? Anything anybody wants to address or raise?
Next year, we need more signage at the park, Osborne Point, to ensure no swimming, no fires, no camping, etc. I think because of COVID, it just got overwhelmed this year. Hopefully it'll go back to normal. But, a lot of the people are bringing kayaks and canoes down through the park. Got to ensure that they get inspected and go through the launch.
That's a good point. Rebecca or Cindy, do you have anything?
That's it.
There will be opportunities in the future. Okay, so now I'd like to open it up to our last public comment. Shorty? Yeah, no, Eric, I have yours as well.
It's one little thing is probably a slip of the tongue in your.
So you're Shorty Hoffman? Yeah.
When you said you appointed Mark Rivers to take Letty's place until the next election, which is in April, it should be in March.
It's in March, yes, thank you.
I didn't want to say anything you made a mistake.
Thank you.
It's just a slip of the tongue.
Yep, it was.
And the only other thing, when Roger talked about that, the salt and stuff like
Yes.
that. I mean, many years they've discussed it, and because of what they, when you're talking about the trees, it's called the canopy effect.
That's it.
And that's the problem when you got around that, because the state won't do anything about
Yep.
brushing it back. And one time when they had a meeting in Indian Lake with the company, the salt company out at Great Lakes, to keep a road there, you need so many thousands of cars per hour to go across that road. We're lucky, this Indian Lake Road, we're lucky if we have 1,000 cars in a week in the
Yeah.
winter time.
Right.
You know, when the weather is, so you need more salt to get the job done compared to down below. And otherwise, you start cutting down on your salt usage, then you have more wrecks and then lawsuits get involved and the state, so, you know.
Yes, no, those are all good points, thank you.
It's been, all the highway superintendents have been doing a great job for me.
They have. Yeah.
You just can't change the way things are done.
Yep.
We're unique and, hey, we're proud of it.
That's it, that's it.
Anyway, that's all I got.
Thank you. So the next public comment is by Eric Craven, who those of you on Zoom can see him. Hello, Eric. So Eric sent me some comments, so I'll read those. My name is Eric Craven of Speculator. Given my weakened voice, may I ask Mayor Barrett to relay my remarks? Yes, you may, and I'm happy to do so.
Yeah.
Thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts. I wanted to congratulate Trustees Rumsey and Smith for winning their respective elections. We all look forward to your energy and creativity to maintain the positive momentum set over the past 18 months. I would also like to congratulate the new clerk. This was her first election being executed on her watch. It was flawless and impeccable. Lastly, I'd like to congratulate the citizens of our village for voting in a spectacular board to partner with an equally spectacular mayor. Thank you, Eric. It's very kind. And as a mayor, I would like to thank you and Claire for your many, many contributions to this community. You have done a tremendous work for us, and we are very grateful. And we are very sorry to see that you've sold your beautiful home on the lake and will be leaving us, but we look forward to seeing you back in the summer as visitors.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you. Are there any other public comments? Well, I wish Letty were here because she usually gives our final dismissal motion. So on behalf of Letty Roots, I'd like a motion to adjourn this meeting. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Meeting is adjourned at 8:45. Night.